Good evening. This is Dale Lamb with Gardner Webb. This is Mels 604. It's Wednesday, November the 2nd. It's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure some of you want to watch the big ball game tonight, seventh game of the World Series, and so I'll try to be as brief as I can this evening. All right. This is, I said, Zoom session 9, week 9. We're still doing peer reviews. I have one to show us here in just a few minutes. Let's check our weekly schedule and see where we are with all of our other work. If I can get this to load. There we go. Okay, week 9. All right. Curriculum in action. Read chapters 8, 9, 10. Professional development. I have a website for you to go to. Discussion board 7. And discussion board 8. Please remember, you have to do those before the end of the semester, but you do them on your own time. Where we are with our evidence artifact work, A through E of the APTEL should be in peer review right now. The last component of the APTEL should be now ready for, should have been peer reviewed and should be ready to go into task stream. A side note, you folks are already through 603, but there's been some discussion about what to do with OMA component E. It's not required per se because it wasn't in your handbook. However, it is required in task stream. It's a short and easy. You need it to complete your SIOP component F, and so I'll show you how to do a quick and easy way to do that. I'm going to film that video and I'll send you the link tomorrow night. I'm going to do that with my 603 class. I don't want to take too much time tonight. It'll take a little while. So I will send you a link tomorrow night. Zoom share. Okay, hopefully you can see week 9 on your screen. But I will film for you tomorrow night, and I will tell you where you can stop. But I will send you some notes on doing the OMAE. Hello, Jamal. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm great. Hope you are.
Yeah, I am.
Tomorrow night, I will film a little. I'll try to keep it to 15 minutes. I'll film a clip on how to do a quick and dirty OMAE that you can put in task stream. You can send it to me for peer review. It doesn't have to go through the entire process, but it's important to do that and save it because you're going to need it next semester or soon in order to put together your SIOP part F, where you put all of your action plans, marketing and process plans together to come up with your school improvement plan, the working copy of that. You will need that information for that, so you might as well go ahead and drop it in OMAE in task stream. You will not have to have it peer reviewed. You just put it together and stick it in there for evaluation. That way, there won't be a hold when you come time to graduate because that component's not done. So it's just basically in preparation for doing your 6F. We'll go ahead and call it OMAE. A quick and easy way to do that so that it won't be that much a big deal for you, and you'll appreciate that later on. So that's where we are right now. You should have APTEL E ready for task stream. You should be in peer review for A and E. To that end, I have a video tonight. Let me go to it. Okay. There we go. So I will go ahead and get this one started.
It's Melissa. I just reviewed your analysis and action plan for teacher empowerment and leadership, the final product. So I'm just going to share some feedback that I saw. Overall, I think you did a great job. I thought your explanation of what teacher leadership and empowerment was very good. I thought you did a great job with your action plan and the opportunities for empowerment, where it was very clear to me that you see the value in teacher empowerment, and then you also discuss how you're going to incorporate that like throughout the school day. So I thought that was well done. I'll just kind of go through the peer review. I thought the use of charts and tables that you used throughout the paper were great. As you know, Wake County is really trying to encourage every school to incorporate the 4 C's, which you did throughout your paper. You discussed EVOS data and how your school kind of looks at that for deciding, which teachers are doing a great job and which teachers might need some extra support, and kind of who those like the experts in your school, if you will, who can help other teachers. So I thought that was great. Your school is doing a good job identifying effective teachers, like I just said, and then and Tui, you talk about the principal's message of make it a great day, and letting teachers and students and all staff go out and make it a great day. I think that's so important. I think sometimes in schools we focus a lot on test scores and student achievement, and building those relationships and encouraging teachers to find kind of the positives throughout their day, I think is one way to really build school morale, which is good, and it creates that positive learning environment. As far as the rubric, you talk about, the teacher efficacy and the effectiveness. I talked about, if you put a little more detail into the best practices, I think you did a great job talking about the best practices and the PD that's based on areas of weakness. So that from the last time I reviewed it to now, that was an improvement. And you talked about how the staff is able to share during the professional development based on the areas of weakness, and then it's measured by EOG scores. And I think that's important, that your school's not just saying, okay, this is an area of weakness, here's the PD on it, and let's be done with it. But, here's the PD, now let's see, was it effective? And you're using EOG scores for that. I would think that your school would probably be using some other measures to see if it was effective. But I think that's important, that it's not just, here it is, let's hope it works, but your school is trying to get the most out of the professional development, so they don't, seems like they wouldn't repeat PD that wasn't effective. So I thought that was good. You talk about, documenting best practices so that they're happening with fidelity. I was just curious to see how your school would do it. I know at my school, we do our PD, we talk about best practices, talk about these research-based strategies, and our principal says, go out and do them. And sometimes I wonder how much they're actually happening within the school. And I think, walkthroughs would obviously be a great way to measure that. Which our school's doing better with, but I'm curious. I mean, your school's a lot bigger than the school I teach at, so curious to see, how your administration or leadership team was able to do that. I think the collaboration to identify gaps with EVOS is great. And again, going back to what I said earlier, where you had talked about finding those teachers that are doing really well with a certain area and having them kind of be a mentor or lead PD in the school. I think that's so effective, and it increases not only the teacher leadership, but the empowerment where, I think there's something that everybody does really well, and there's always areas where people can improve. But, if you're that teacher that's been struggling, but you knocks it out of the park with teaching, adding decimals, and then you can take on that leadership role, that's going to empower teachers. So as far as the action plan, I said that it allows opportunities for teachers and staff to assume leadership roles. It has strategies for building efficacy. There's structures for implementation of effective PLCs. It supports emerging school leaders, and it provides methods for formal feedback for teachers. So I thought you did a great job there. I think the abstract at the beginning of your paper was great. It sets up the research really well as far as what is going to be discussed. Your depth of understanding, I think, and their critical thinking skills are really well done. Because you identify those best practices and areas of need for staff, and that's aligned to the rubric. So I thought you did well with that. As I said before, you're tying in the 4 C's, which is good because that's what Wake County wants us to do. I talked about, will teachers who aren't BTs be open to having mentors? I know some teachers are always really open to feedback, and then other teachers sometimes take that as, especially if they've been teaching longer, they may take that as a diss at their teaching, for lack of a better word. But how do you encourage those teachers who have been teaching a while but maybe need some extra help? How do you encourage them to buy into having a mentor? Your mechanics and grammar was good. The organization, it was really easy to follow. Everything was labeled appropriately. I think you hit all your descriptors, and your citing looked fine to me. So, overall, I think you did a great job, and hopefully, that action plan is in effect at your school and has improved the teacher leadership. So, yeah, good job. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. All right, bye.
Okay.
Dr. Lamb.
Yes.
So it's okay if we peer review without actually, being on the same video conference.
You can.
Okay.
That's why I showed this one tonight. With busy schedules, it's okay with me if you peer review like Melissa just did, and that's why I wanted to show. That's a good point. Thank you for reminding me of that. That was the idea. Yes. If you can't find the time, go ahead and spend. Melissa did about 7 minutes. That's plenty. 5 to 7 minutes where you hit the major things, and that would be excellent. Good point. I'm glad you reminded me of that. That's the reason I picked this one to show. All right. Now, a continuation of what Melissa was talking about. Let me see. I've got a document that I want to share with you, if it will pop up. Let's see. Yes, here it is. New share. And I call this MTSS for teachers. As Melissa pointed out, one of the functions in this course, the 604 curriculum, is also models of teaching, models of supervising teaching, and evaluation. And one of the things that I hear quite often is what Melissa just pointed out. How do you get your older teachers to accept or your more veteran teachers to accept help with their teaching? Well, I've done an MTSS for teachers, and pretty much what this talks about is that you start out in staff development at the beginning of the year during the teacher work days, and you do anywhere from a half an hour to all day, according to generally where your staff is in terms of using high yield strategies, Marzano, which is the basis of our, it's what helps us with EVOS with getting growth, but also is the basis of our evaluation system in North Carolina. So we need at least a 30-minute reminder at the beginning of the year that this is the coin of the realm. This is how you get scores, and this is how your evaluations will be conducted based on these 9 high yield strategies. Now, I get asked questions from time to time, Dale, which is it? Is it 30 minutes or all day? Well, it's based on your walkthrough data and your evaluations from the year before. If you have a lot of new teachers, if you have a lot of people who aren't using high yield strategies in their normal daily classroom routine, then you're going to need more than 30 minutes. If you have a veteran staff and a lot of people are using it, then you might want to tend toward the 30 minutes. And the way that you determine who's going to be leading that staff development is from your data from the year before. Who got good test scores and good evaluations? Those are the people who you should be empowering as a school leader to be leading that staff development. And it's not about time. It's about it's not about time, how much time you put in. It's about results. If teachers have been there 20 years but aren't getting results, they need help. You can't allow teachers just to kind of bumble along on reputation anymore, because and they can't just they can't just rely on reputation and I'm a good teacher and everybody knows it anymore. We know whose kids make growth and who doesn't, and we can't blame the kids anymore either, because growth's determined on each individual kid, not based on some artificial standard of comparison. It's kids compared to himself. So that's how you start the year, and then you do PLC work from your walkthrough data and from your observations the year before. You know which of the 9 practices is used the least. It's usually non-linguistic representation, and you work on that. Now, how often do you work on that in PLCs? Well, if nobody's using it at all, you better work on it pretty regularly in PLCs. And if people are using it somewhat, again, you adjust the amount of time that they work on that particular high yield strategy based on how much they are using it or how much they used it the year before. And then you start with your beginning teachers one-on-one peer coaching. They do that now. As you learned last semester in 603, it's a bear to schedule a school. And one of the things you have to make a priority in that scheduling process is that mentors and mentees do not have common planning time. Let me say that again. I know that sounds crazy. You need for your mentors and mentees not to have common planning time. Why? Because they need to get into one another's classrooms while they're teaching. The problem with having common planning time is when Jamal's my mentor, when he comes, when at his planning time, that's my planning time. That does no good. When I want to go see Jamal, who's the expert, when I have time when it's my planning time, he's got planning time too. And so one of the things you really have to make a priority, and that's, in that rationale of scheduling that you learned last semester, federal law comes first, then state law, then local board policy, then best practices. That's what a best practice is. People say, well, what's an example of a best practice in scheduling? A best practice in scheduling is don't schedule mentors and mentees with common planning time. That way they can get in one another's classroom and watch one another work. And so if you see, I've got dates over here on the left-hand side of my chart here. And then what happens is basically we give teachers that first 9 weeks, returning teachers, and if they don't show any improvement from working in PLCs or the opening staff development, we call them low performing teachers. We start with them with a one-on-one coach. And so I guess we start out from the point of view, we're going to remind you one more time what you're supposed to be doing in that whole group session. We're going to have you work on it in your PLCs, and after 9 weeks as a returning teacher, if you haven't gotten the message that your teaching is not up to par, we're going to give you a one-on-one coach just like the BTs. But we're doing it in a formal way. I hope that you'll accept it in the spirit that it's intended. But if you don't, 9 weeks later, we're going to put you on an action plan. We'll continue with that help, but we're already, we're halfway through the year and you've not shown any improvement. We gave you 9 weeks, a quarter to try to improve on your own. You didn't. We gave you 9 weeks of help. You still didn't. Now we're going to give you an action plan. We're going to formalize this process. And then after one more quarter, we're going to make a decision on you. If you don't show any improvement in that third quarter, we're going to give you a notice of non-renewal. Whether your career status or whether you're not is unimportant. In the era of accountability, EVOS accountability, growth model accountability, you can't just let teachers struggle along and blame the kids anymore.
Quick question.
It can't happen.
If you place teachers on an action plan, are they allowed to leave that school on an action plan, or should they stay? Are they staying at that same school?
They have to stay, or they can leave the district.
Okay. They
can leave the district, but they can't transfer within the district when they're on an action plan.
Okay.
That's a good question. I don't know if everybody could hear that. Jamal just asked about teacher transfer. They can't transfer within the district. They can go to another district, or they can go to another school system. But as I have in this lesson plan here that I cover in 602, the formula for determining what a year's growth is for a student is based on that individual student. And these are the dependent variables that contribute to the variance of the independent variable. Basically, these are the things that are used to predict the test score. This is my model. I believe this to be true from my experience in the business. You know that SAS Institute in Raleigh does this. That's a private company. They don't publish their formula, but I believe this is the formula. Race, mother's education, father's income, and teacher. Teacher makes up 10%. That's the biggest amount of impact or amount of variance out of something that can be controlled. You can't control race, mother's education, father's income. So a good teacher can get you 10%. It counts for 10% of the variance in the kid's score. So in a model where we're talking about a point or two making all the difference in the world, 10% is big. A great teacher, supposedly a great teacher, the best teacher in each building can get 11, but I'm not sure that's, I think 10 is about the limit. And so if we looked at a kid, if we ran it, Jamar's third grade student, CMS, his dependent variables are, he's black, that's 20 out of 30, white would be 30, Hispanic would be 15. That's not racist, and it's not my opinion. That's how the score gaps break down in the state of North Carolina. Mother less than the high school diploma gets 5 out of 15. No father in home, teacher 10, that always assume teacher 10. CMS, high wealth district versus a low wealth district school. Takeover school versus a high growth school. The grade, he's not a repeater. His age, he's 9 years old. He was developmentally delayed, so he started school at age 6, so that gives him 3 points rather than 5. Gender, he gets 5 points because it's a math test. Females would get 4. Be just reversed if it were a reading test. Previous scores. So his equation looks like this. And so if the total possible raw score on the third grade EOG test is 180, Jamal, his variance is 55%. He's got to score 99 to show a year of growth. It can't be any more customized and individual than that. And so now teachers, 85% of their kids have to make growth, and in schools, 85% of the teachers in that school must make growth. You can't sit around anymore and allow teachers to not perform and not use high yield strategies. Now, using high yield strategies is not teaching to the test. It's using teaching strategies that get you the best results. It's also the basis of our evaluation system in North Carolina. So why in the world would you not use high yield strategies? But that's what the AppTel is all about. It's about empowering teachers. It's about working with your lower performing teachers, identifying your higher performing teachers and having them work with your lower performing teachers and finding a model. And here's one that I propose that you use right here, finding a model that leads you to support those teachers as far as you can, and then morph that into an action plan if that help is not being well received. I know that's kind of cold-hearted, but your job is supervision of instruction. You cannot allow teachers to underperform all the time and just continue to do that. And this is a model to do that. So that's why I wanted to show you, also wanted to show you that video tonight. I'm going to post this one, this particular document. I'm going to post it under intern materials on the main board, and you can look over this one. But this is a really good one. All right. Okay. We've already looked at our weekly schedule. Looking at task stream, let me go to a new share here and go to task stream. Looking at task stream, our classmate Bruce has done all of his competencies and they're great. If you don't remember how to set that up, I went through that the last 2 weeks, how to set up your competency folio. As I told you, once you get it going, it's the red one. Don't worry about professional dispositions and digital learning competencies right now. You're still under the old system of dispositions, and the digital learning competencies are integrated in these, and so we won't worry about those right now. But as you can see, Bruce uploaded a document, and his documents that he uploaded generally had like screen grabs. Here's one from 2, or it had, this is his agenda for a PLC meeting. He uploaded a document that had these things already embedded in it. Let me go back to new share and show you that one. This is Bruce's. He also uploaded one that had an email in it, a copy of an email. We're looking for a product. We're looking for a proof or an artifact that you did. If you formed a PLC, then an artifact would be a meeting agenda, and that's what he's got here. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for, and don't forget that if you want to know what examples of acceptable proof of competency is, on the intern materials page, I have examples of open-ended competencies. That are tied to your 400 hours. And I have examples of artifacts that would be acceptable that are generated from doing your evidence artifact work. And there they are. And again, I just use the competency number, and here's the number. So if you're looking for something from communication, from evidence artifact 1, it would be a PLC agenda or PLC minutes. You can see here, communication is number 1. And so these are examples of number 1. These are also examples of 3, 6, 12, and 20. And so I have categorized each of these where they fall, because they hit more than one, what you could use them for. And you make a brief argument as to why that fits that particular competency. Bruce has done an excellent job. I appreciate him getting his in so we could all look at them. But again, okay, share screen.
And we can use more than one evidence for the competency, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now remember, you just have to do one round.
Right.
Fill them all up one time and you're done. But as you can see here for communication, he's got a copy of an email. He just put that in there and explained it, you know.
Okay.
It's easy. It's easy. It's very easy. This was not intended to take more than 3 hours to do a whole round.
Okay.
This substitutes for that big long meeting that we had at the end with your principal. So it's not supposed to take more than 3 hours. I don't want to speak for Bruce, but I think he did his over last weekend. I don't know how much time he spent, but he did a great job, but he was able to knock it out.
Okay.
So I appreciate him doing that for us. And, again, right here's it. Here's his, he tells me, where it came from. It came from Artifact 1A, email to principal. That's an example of communication. There you go. And that's straight off the list of acceptable things. So if you look at those two lists of acceptable things, you've got some of those things just laying around. Just grab them up and stick them in there, and you're good. Because those are things that you would have generated in the normal course of doing this work. Nothing extra, nothing new. So hopefully you'll get started on your competency soon. That will be good. Thanks again to Bruce for the example. Let me go back to share screen, back to task stream. Everybody knows how to set up their competency folio. Again, don't worry about the last two. Just go down through visionary. We'll worry about those later. I don't think we have to. Y'all are in 604. I don't believe y'all have to do either one of those because we're still doing the old form of dispositions with you folks. All right. What else have I got tonight in my goodie bag? We've already gone over the weekly schedule. I'm trying to stay on my promise to stay on the 30 minutes tonight. All right. As I said, just kick off the evening. I'm going to film a little something tomorrow night for OMAE. You're going to need something to stick in task stream, but more importantly, you're going to need that information when you do your SIOP-F, which is due next semester. That's where you put all of your graphic organizers together and make a working copy of a school improvement plan. You'll need that part of it. And so I will show you how to do a quick and easy. I'll record that tomorrow night and I'll send you the link. It won't be more than 15 minutes. I want to make sure that everybody knows that whether we determine that OMAE is required or not, it needs to be in task stream and be graded, and you need that information when you do SIOP-F because you're going to do it one way or the other. We might as well knock it out now if we can. All right. Jamal, you have any questions for me tonight? Is anything that I missed that we need to cover?
No. No, that's not.
All right. I'm going to, as I said, that MTSS for teachers and the EVOS information that goes along with the AppTel from 602. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to put that in Blackboard under intern materials for you to read over that. If you have any questions, I'll talk to you about them next week. All right. Let's go watch the ball game. I'll see you all next Wednesday. Y'all have a good night.
All right.